Ready? Okay. In the summer of 2020, I got the opportunity to go on a bear hunt in southeastern Utah. One afternoon, my uncle, my dad, my sister, and I decided that we would go sit in one of our blinds. This blind was about 200 to 300 yard hike downhill. When we had left to go sit in this blind, we knew that there was going to be a possibility of rain, but we still decided to go anyways. So we got dropped off, and we made our way down the hill, and we got settled in. And after about 20 minutes of being there, the wind began to pick up, and the trees began to start swaying, and the very next thing we knew, it was starting to rain. My uncle called his friend to come pick us up, and we began to make our trek back up the hill. Once we got to the top and to the road, it began to pour rain on us, and the truck was nowhere to be seen. So, in hopes of getting out of the rain quicker, we began to walk down the road towards where the truck would be coming from. Finally, that Toyota Tacoma popped up over the hill, and we were saved from the rain. Toyota Tacomas are not typically known as big trucks, so as you can imagine, the 5 of us being smushed in there was not a comfortable ride for any of us. All the way back to camp, we were all smushed together laughing about how bad of an idea that was. Although this experience was undesirable and can be considered as a low, these experiences of the lows, along with the highs, have the unique ability to unite people and to raise the question of how are these experiences in the outdoors shaping my relationships with others and what am I learning? Nature gives us a unique opportunity to be in God's creation, but with this comes the threat of obstacles. These obstacles can be approached in a multitude of ways, and in this, people tend to lose sight of what is important, that being their walk with God. When faced with these difficult obstacles that we may not have anticipated, it is important that we learn how to call on our Creator for strength and wisdom. This calling of the Lord may not always prove to be easy, and it takes a lot of trust and hope that God is going to answer your calls to be saved. Isaiah 41:10 states, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Through this verse, it is made clear to us that God is with us throughout every step of the journey, and that with Him there is no task that we cannot make it past. Being willing to submit to God and to trust Him with everything you have is the first true step to building strong godly relationships, as by trusting Him, you are strengthening that relationship. A couple of years ago, one of our very own, Mr. Priya, had a life-altering fall, leaving him with an eye-opening experience. On a trip to Banff National Park with his family, he was walking around taking pictures, and at one moment he was getting a cool shot, and the very next he was laying at the base of a waterfall, crying, hoping for someone to save him. This fall had cracked 3 ribs, broke his pelvis in 3 spots, and shattered his elbow. Although he had made a couple of attempts to get himself out, he ultimately was not able to accomplish that feat, and he then went on to lay there crying for 75 minutes until God had finally answered his calls to be saved through another park visitor. This visitor alerted a ranger, and after getting there, the ranger decided they would not be able to get him out on their own, and a helicopter was called in. This helicopter took him down to the valley, and to his luck, he got one of the best doctors he could have gotten, and this doctor did an excellent job at fixing him. Only a year later, Mr. Priya returned to the outdoors, and this experience not only led him to be more aware of his surroundings, but above all, he was just thankful to have the opportunity to even be back out in the outdoors. The trials Mr. Priya was faced with not only allowed him to call on God, but also to develop a deeper trust in God. And this deeper trust in God not only allowed him to grow closer to God, but also to further develop that relationship. The unpredictability of life should not hold you back from experiencing the beauty of God's creation. For my thesis, I interviewed Paul Talley, the CEO of Wilderness Trek. Mr. Talley put it this way: nature is one of the areas where we get to witness a God that seems invisible. Mr. Priya did not anticipate that he would be lying flat on his back at the bottom of a waterfall, but God saved him. This uncertainty could have made it very easy for Mr. Priya to stay out of the outdoors out of a fear of what could go wrong, but he did not let it overcome him. To be able to return to the outdoors only a year after a fall of this magnitude is remarkable, and it also gave him the chance to both grow closer to God and to trust God in a deeper way than many people can. Nature is a great leveler, as Mr. Talley would say. At one moment you could be feeling on top of the world, and the very next you could be wondering, wow, what did I do wrong? By stepping out into the outdoors, you're making yourself vulnerable to anything that can happen. Nature gives us a unique opportunity to be both uncomfortable and to push ourselves further than we even thought possible. For example, there have been countless times where I've been in the outdoors and I've looked at this mountain I'm going to have to hike up on, and I've been like, wow, this is going to suck. And almost every time it has. So earlier this year in FCA, Mr. Martinez put it this way: you have to learn how to embrace the suck, or to embrace the unpleasant times. In American history, we learned all about the American Revolution and the trials and hardships that our men had encountered. From the worn-out clothes, to the lack of shoes to protect their feet, to living conditions that none of us could even imagine, our men had to go through some of the worst conditions any human could go through. Had our men not been able to embrace the suck, who's to truly say where we would be at today? The human body is resilient. It is capable of a lot more than you think it is. You just have to push it. Without the cause of fighting for our freedom, these men would not have been forced to push themselves, but by pushing themselves, they were given the chance to win the war and also to use the abilities that God had blessed them with. When we're in the outdoors, we are completely subject to God's plan. At one moment, it could be sunny and beautiful, and the next, it could be raining, leaving you wondering what you got yourself into. With this comes a sense of discomfort and what Paul Talley defined as type 2 fun. See, type 1 fun is something that's fun while you're doing it, like Six Flags. Type 2 fun, on the other hand, is when you question why you are doing what you're doing, and you don't really understand the value of the experience until later on looking back. In the woods, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be experiencing this idea of type 2 fun. While you're in the woods, you're completely at God's mercy due to his vastness and ultimate power. For my thesis, I read Courage is Calling, a book written by Ryan Holiday. In his book, he quotes William Faulkner by saying, "Be scared, you cannot help that, but do not be afraid." The woods present a challenge for many people, that being not having complete control of your surroundings. In the woods, you're completely at God's will, and you have to be able to overcome these undesirable situations. Type 2 fun is no fun, and it can leave you exhausted both physically and mentally, but in that fun, there is tremendous opportunity to grow. To experience this growth, you have to give it all to God and trust that in this rainstorm or in this awful hike, that there's going to be a sense of accomplishment that you receive by persevering through it. This presents the opportunity to truly lean on God and grow close to him, knowing that if you trust him, he will get you through the lows. Although we can get through situations on our own with the help of God, adding more people to your journey presents a new opportunity, as now you have the chance to strengthen relationships with those around you. Like everything else, being with others also presents a challenge, as now you're not only looking out for yourself, but you're looking out for the people with you. In his book, Ryan Holiday put it this way: you must care about the people in your care. You must put them first. You must show them with your actions, call them to something higher. Paul Talley has been doing wilderness treks since he heard about it in seminary and college, and has been a part of it ever since. Through Wilderness Trek, Mr. Talley has seen people from all different walks of life and has seen people break through barriers that they didn't think they'd be able to break through. Wilderness Trek provides a unique experience due to the fact that you're surrounded by others with the same common goal in mind, and that can provide you with that extra boost that you may need to break out of your comfort zone. The ability to be in God's creation, at God's mercy, with nothing but the people around you is a special thing, and it has an undeniable unifying quality. Immediately, one could shoot down this premise that the outdoors are the best place to build godly relationships, simply by just saying, I build strong godly relationships just fine outside of the outdoors. In sophomore year at Midland Classical, we go through Servant Leadership, a book written by David Kunert. Over the course of reading and discussing Kunert's book, we learned the qualities needed to be an effective servant leader, as in the next year we would be stepping up onto the big stage as our T leaders, and ultimately the leaders of the entire school. This transition into leadership brings a lot more power and responsibility than you may think, because now, no matter what you do, somebody is going to be watching you. As a 16 to 17-year-old, this is a lot of pressure, but with this pressure comes a chance to leave a lasting legacy not only on the individuals that you're intentional with and built a relationship with, but the school as a whole. To effectively leave your legacy, you must keep your goal in mind. Without a goal, you may lose sight of what is important, that being living a Christ-like life and pointing those around you to God. As I've transitioned into being an upperclassman, I was oblivious to the power that my actions had until this year. With this power, I've realized that I needed to make changes with how I live my day-to-day life, and it has pushed me to build stronger godly relationships. Had I not had my foundation set by servant leadership all the way back in 10th grade, I would not have had what I properly needed to build these strong godly relationships with a clear goal. The tools MCA has placed at my disposal have helped me tremendously to build strong godly relationships, but I believe that there is a ceiling to how far these relationships can go. I've had the privilege of going on 3 hunts with my Uncle David Williams. David has been a long-time hunter, and in 2017 decided he was going to take the next step and enter into the guiding business. Through being a guide, David has met many different people and has seen some remarkable things that have led to countless stories. I believe that my uncle possesses some of the most valuable leadership qualities someone can have, these being the qualities of a servant leader. One of the most important things talked about in servant leadership at MCA is their here path. This is a journey from where you're at in life to where you want to end up being. For example, as a student, your there is to graduate, and your path is all the trials and triumphs that shape your journey to graduation. Although it may not seem like a big deal, our paths give us considerable power over people's lives, as even though we may not realize it, someone is always watching. The thing that separates David from other leaders is that he is exceptional at keeping others on their path and knowing just how to get you to your there. I've watched David prep for hunts, and he is extremely diligent as he is out in the field months before the hunt even begins, scouting the area and learning the way of the land and trying to figure out the most effective way to get his hunters to their goal. Not many people are blessed with this gift, but God has given David the ability to lead well and uses it to not only help me, but countless others. In conclusion, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. If you can achieve that, then you'll succeed in building these strong godly relationships, and you'll reap the rewards of a deeper bond with both your Creator and your peers. No matter what you're doing in nature, whether that is hunting, fishing, or even just hiking, it is a way that you can both grow closer to God and others, and also a way that you can find yourself. As I had previously mentioned, nature is one of the areas where we get to witness a God that seems invisible. The opportunity to be within God's creation at His mercy gives us a unique chance to build deeper relationships than in any other aspect of life. I fully believe that godly relationships are best developed in the outdoors. Thank you. Thank you.
Is that on now? Okay. So let's start with, what are your plans for next year? What's your here path?
I'm going to be going to Texas Tech, and I'm going to be pursuing a degree in architecture.
Okay. What prompted you to choose this topic?
Okay, so as many of y'all may know, earlier this year, me and Kmart kind of got in a little fight because our topics were...
Disagreement.
Yeah, a disagreement. But our topics were a little too similar. Basically, we wanted to do the same thing. But I kind of just decided, I'm going to let him have it. And then I decided to go a different way with it. And it took a while, but finally landed on this. So.
Okay. Let me decide what I want to jump into first. Let's talk about the unpredictability of life. Can you give me an example from day-to-day life of something that's been unpredictable for you?
Like just being at school? Or just
anything not outdoors related.
I mean, kind of just like, I see it a lot at work because like every day's different at a golf course. Like some days it might be super busy, some days it might not be busy at all. Some days like a lot more stuff happens on certain days, stuff like that. So it's just like in that getting yelled at, you have to like realize that it's not like the end of the world, I guess. Which is kind of something that I've had to learn because we get yelled at very constantly. So just trying to take what I need out of that and then push the rest of this. I did not worry about it too much.
Would you say that you use your leadership skills that you've learned at MCA at work?
Yes.
Can you give me an example of that?
Well, a lot of the guys I work with are not the most, let me think the word, like driven, I guess. So they kind of just like, they don't have a lot of initiative. So, so a lot of it is just me, like, a lot of them, they won't do something unless they see you doing it. So you kind of just have to, like, do your job and then hope that they follow you. But a lot of it's just kind of doing your thing, you know?
What would you say, how have you used your leadership skills that you learned at MCA actually in practice at MCA, whether it's RT group or in the classroom?
Okay, so like right at the beginning of the school year, me, Court, and then some other guys decided we would take some of the 7th grade guys to lunch. And I got Cade Greathouse to ride with me. And then RT night came, and Cade Greathouse was in my RT group. So I've kind of taken it as an opportunity to like be more intentional with him. Because we have a smaller group, so we can split it up to where like each leader is more intentional with 2 of the kids. So it's like giving me the chance to like be, I don't know where he is, but talk to Cade more. And then like also Carter, like a lot of people don't know this, but we're cousins. And before this year, I had like never talked to him at family get-togethers. But now this year, this year I take him to lunch every week. So it gives me that chance to like grow closer to him and talk to him more. So
That's cool. Type 1 fun and type 2 fun. So I totally identify with the type 2 fun, and so does my elbow surgeon. So tell me about that a little bit. Why do you think, like I know a lot of people who are not at all interested in type 2 fun.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, first of all, remind the audience what the difference is between type 1 and type 2 fun.
Okay, so type 1 fun is like your Six Flags or your football game or something like that, where it's like it's fun while you're doing it, but like it's not going to leave you with like it's not going to leave you with anything. But like type 2 fun is something that is like the absolute worst thing while you're doing it, but then like you learn a lot more about yourself and like what you're capable of after it's passed, and like you realize the value of that experience.
So back to the question I wanted to ask originally. Why do you think that some people, or maybe do you think some people are just wired to like type 2 fun more than type 1 fun?
Yes.
Or so what is it that makes those things exciting for us weirdos?
I would say, well, a lot more people are like drawn to the outdoors, I guess, and like, okay, let's take my uncle's friend Bryant, for example. Bryant likes to make himself miserable and go on these annoying hikes that nobody else wants to be a part of. But like in that, he has seen like it's not necessarily like whenever you think of type 2 fun, it's not necessarily like the journey and thinking about how bad it's going to be, but like the things you can see by going on that journey. Like he's seen, like, I can't describe some of the stuff he's seen, but it's like being on mountain peaks, just being able to look out and see what's around you, and just being able to soak it all in and realize like you just did this thing that's going to make you uncomfortable for a little while, but in the end, now you have like this new like knowledge of what's around you, or like you've got like this new cool experience that you can tell people about.
Why do you think, because it seems like in my experience, the type 2 fun, the reward for that is a beautiful experience, but there's always an element of danger involved. Why is that?
I would say just like going back to the unpredictability of life, like being in nature, you're not in control of all of your I mean, you can control certain things, but like a lot of it is you just have to kind of like trust and know that like whatever's going to happen is like meant to be, I would say. Like a big thing for me, like whenever I've been scared, like for example, my sister can attest to this. On mountain roads, it's like you got the hill and then you got death. So it's kind of just like looking at that and realizing that like, yes, there's danger there, but like you kind of just like, you can't really fear that danger and let it hold you back, or else you're not going to accomplish anything. You're just going to be sitting at the truck the whole time. So
the danger kind of creates part of the beauty then?
I think the danger pushes you to grow, and it also like creates some of the beauty as well.
You also had a quote in here about the difference between being scared and being fearful.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between those two things?
I'd say it's not really a fear aspect in nature. It's more of just like a respect for what like could happen to you. But like obviously, like I can be afraid of this mountain road that leads to death, but if I'm scared of it, then it's going to hold or like keep me back from getting to my end goal that I'm trying to pursue. So you kind of just have to like not really fear it, but respect it.
How do you find that balance? Like, how do you know how far to push the boundary before it goes over to, okay, this is stupid and I'm going to die?
I mean, a good deal of it is peer pressure, because there's a lot of situations that I've been in where I've been like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And then my uncle's been like, yeah, you're doing that. So I'm like, you just kind of have to just buckle up and do it, you know?
Okay, I'm going to pass it on to Miss Rogers.
All right. Great job.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed hearing your perspective. I don't know a lot about hunting, but I do love the outdoors, so I was excited to get to tackle this with you. So kind of piggybacking on the fear aspect of nature. Mm-hmm. So you quote Mr. Talley, and he says, nature is one of the areas where we get to witness a God that seems invisible. Do you feel like you witness God more when you experience the dangerous part of nature, or do you feel like you experience him more through beauty of nature?
Well, I would say I kind of tie them together, because a lot of the times that I've experienced this beauty of nature, it's been after I've gotten driving past the Death Mountain Road. So, like, I think a lot of it just comes from like being able to get through that danger. And so I guess it kind of does tie to the danger, but like I've just noticed that if you push yourself through that danger, then you're going to experience the beauty a lot more, because it's easier to experience the beauty of a mountain from the top than the bottom.
Yeah, it's more rewarding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do you personally view nature? Do you believe it to be more chaotic and unpredictable, or do you view it more as like orderly?
I mean, there is that like fear of what could go wrong, but I think being in nature is like one of the places I feel calmest, even with all like the added danger. So I just think, yeah, it's not really chaotic to me. Like, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong, and there is times where I've been like playing the hypotheticals in my head, and it's like caused me to worry. But you just kind of have to be calm and rest in that.
Yeah. So how does that affect your trust in our Creator?
So I'm very scared of heights, and on this bear hunt, we were sitting in a tree stand, and it's connected to a quakey tree, and quakeys are known for not having very deep roots, mm-hmm. and they, like, if you see a big windstorm, it'll knock over countless trees. So one afternoon we were sitting in these tree stands, and the wind, like, it wasn't blowing hard, but it was blowing enough to where you're just like sitting there and you're just like, and then I'm just like, ooh. So a lot of that was just like sitting there and just like praying and knowing that. I think a lot of the stuff I know too is like just thinking that like when it's my time, so I don't really need to worry about what could happen. Mm. So just like being able to sit there and just have rest, knowing that God is going to do what God intends to do.
That's great. Thank you. So I'm not going to lie, kind of reading through this, I definitely kind of have the voice of the opponent that says, why can't I experience deep relationships in the indoors? Because just for example, moving here, I don't spend a lot of time outside without, choking on dust after being outside for 5 minutes. So, can somebody who lives in Midland and never leaves truly experience deep relationships with God and with other people?
I think they can, and I say, like, I believe you can build these strong godly relationships, like, inside or, like, just in your normal day-to-day life, but I think that being in nature gives, like, a chance to go deeper on it, because, like, a lot of the stuff you do in nature, you need someone else, like, to be there to, like, help provide you with that extra push to get you to your goal. And like, for example, my uncle, I see him like maybe 3 times a year, but he's one of the people I'm closest to just because of like some of these experiences that we've shared in the outdoors. And like, I know him on a deeper level because of like some of the things that we've had to do together.
Yeah. What is it? I really like what you have to say about how there's a unifying quality of being outside and working together towards a common goal. What is so unifying about struggling with other people? Okay,
so during that hunt on the lower bait site, it was just me and him. Everybody had to go back to the house because like people have to work, and some people were just tired of being on the hunt. JC. So the rule there is like you have to clean up your bait site after yourself, like clean up after yourself. And that site was like, we had hardly seen any bears get in there. So usually they'll just eat all the food and then you don't have to worry about cleaning it up. But they did not touch anything. I mean, the stuff we put out like the very first weekend was still there whenever we went to clean it up. So me and him took a trash can, and then we walked all the way down there, a trash can and a shovel. We walked all the way down there, and we had to shovel up everything into the trash can, and then we had to carry that trash can 200 yards uphill. So, like, I mean, how you said we were like, how it connects you to people. I mean, we were literally connected by 2 tree branches holding a trash can, and just like, we'd be like, okay, let's go, and then they're like, okay, stop, and then we go, and then stop. It's just like, you have to be able to, like, it helped me grow closer to him in that, like, we both struggled through that, but we both got through it, so it just shows, like, a lot of growth between the both of us, and it helped us, like, now we have a memory we can tell people about.
Yeah, that's for a lot of people who work at summer camps and things like that, or like really hard, kind of hard labor-oriented jobs too. That's a lot of times usually some of the closest friendships that they come away with, because they just do a lot together that's really hard. So, okay, let me see if I have anything else for this first part. I guess we can kind of carry that over to in just diligence in relationships. So what's so important about being diligent in a relationship? Why does that matter?
I'd say the thing about my uncle is that he's very intentional, and like he can sense whenever I'm not like super confident about something we're about to do, but he's not gonna like be like, oh, you need to like man up and like go being a little sissy. He's like, let's think about this and figure out the like most effective way so that you can do it and keep yourself like be comfortable in it, or just like push yourself. So it's just like he's like being a guide. Obviously you have to be a people person, and he's a people person, so he's able to like, he just knows what to say to help me like be more confident in myself. He's extremely like diligent in all like the friendships he has. Is he's not only like this with me but a lot of other people too.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on.
Good job, Jasper.
Thank you.
I was looking forward to also talking with you because I also love the outdoors and I also love Type 2 fun. So one of the questions that I have for you is golf Type 1 or Type 2 fun?
For a lot of people, it's Type 1 fun, but for me, it's Type 2 fun, just because I'm not the best at golf, and it causes me to... I'm a pretty emotional golfer, so it leads to a lot of club slams, and like just be like, dang it, why did that? I don't know. It's something that in the moment, it's like super touchy whether I love it or hate it, and but I keep coming back to it. So it's kind of like the outdoors. Hate it, keep coming back to it.
Yep. So it seems that with this love of Type 2 fun, the way you talk about being on mountaintops and being in nature, it just gives you a certain sense of life. If you could go back in time and be an explorer, I'm specifically thinking of explorers in American history, but it can be outside of that. Which explorer would you be and why?
Probably either Lewis or Clark. Because, like, just that idea of westward expansion and being, like, the first person to see... Because, like, Kmart had touched on, in his oral, the American bison population, which, like, almost got completely depleted. So I think it would have just been like every time I'm out in the woods, I like let's say after I leave the mountain, I see all this life. I just like look at all these roads, and I'm just like, imagine what this place would be like had they not put a road right here, and just like the amount of animals that would be here had we not moved here. So I think it'd be cool to get to experience being able to be the first person to see it.
Yeah, if you I have book recommendations for Lewis and Clark if you'd like to read those later this summer. Let's talk about this idea of embracing the suck, or let's call it embracing the unfortunate maybe. It's something that me and Mrs. Snell will have to do a lot when we're hiking 14ers in Colorado, so we also relate to that. But is that idea something that you can take with you off the mountaintops back into the valleys of life, into your everyday life?
I'd say yes, but not like in as much, like not as, I don't know how to describe this, not as like drastically, I guess, as you would on the, like it's a much more dulled down version of embracing the suck. Like for example, in like a class, or like let's take geometry for example. You have to study propositions all the time, and for some people that may suck, but like you have to be able to push through that out of a fear of getting a bad grade on your proposition, or like doing a thesis paper, or even doing this oral. Like it's something that a lot of people don't look forward to, but you have to be able to push through that. So
okay, so maybe in the outdoors it's more of a physical thing, and at school or in everyday life, let's just say in the city, maybe it's more of a mental strength kind of thing. Okay, do you think that your perspective on what is unfortunate changes over time if you have that perspective? If you embrace those challenges and you overcome them continually, do you think your perspective changes on what truly does suck?
Yes, I think a lot of that though just comes from maturing. Like obviously as a kid, homework sucks, but you don't want to do homework. But then once you grow older, that homework doesn't exist anymore, and you have to you have a lot more stuff that you have to worry about, like bills and just like life in general. And I think also in the woods, it's like as you get older, like obviously you're going to get like stronger both physically and mentally. So I think a lot of it just boils down to like you're constantly growing, so the things that sucked in the past don't suck anymore. Okay,
that's kind of where I was hoping you'd get to. A verse that came to mind when I was thinking of this idea is Philippians 2:14, which is the verse that says, "Do all things without grumbling or disputing." How do you think that verse relates to your idea?
Well, I mean, it's easy in these situations where it's going to suck and you know it's going to suck to just be like, oh, I don't want to do this. Why are you making me do this? Like, I could be like that to my uncle. I could be like, we can just not do this. And then, but it's like, the grumbling doesn't take away from the fact that it's something that you need to do. So you just kind of have to, like, approach it with a smile and a thumbs up and be like, yeah, I'm just going to do this. So,
what gives you the strength to do that, though?
I think being strong mentally. A verse that comes to mind is, I think it's Psalm 46:10, where it says, "Be still and know that I'm God." So it's like, if we try to worry too much about controlling what goes on in our life, we're going to get like bogged down with this. So we just have to know that like this hike that I think is going to suck is something that God has in store for me, so that I can experience this like beauty, or experience this thing I'm going like that He has in store for me.
Okay, yeah, that's really good. Speaking of God, kind of one harder question before we pass the mic back. But I was reading your paper, and I noticed you read the book Courage is Calling. I looked up the author and realized that he's an atheist.
Yeah.
Can you explain why you chose to read that book for this topic about finding godly relationships in the outdoors?
I think that although Ryan Holiday isn't a believer, that there's a lot of ideas that you can carry. Like, I think we can get a lot of ideas from people that don't share the same faith as us. Like, there's this guy I work with named Jimmy, who I was talking to this past weekend, and he said that he was a Baptist, and then he 3 years ago he stepped out of the faith, just like for personal reasons, just because like just like personal reasons. So, but like he gave me some of the like best advice I could have like gotten. So it's just like, I don't think you necessarily have to see like eye to eye on, like, I mean, it's beneficial, but I don't think you have to see eye to eye on these like religion topics to get like what you need to get out of it. Like caring about people in your care and putting them first is something that that's like a Christian idea. So I don't think you necessarily have to be a believer to like have these ideas that, although they may not think it relates back to God, it does.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah, all creation leads back to God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm glad you were able to answer that.
Yeah, Mr. Westfall brought that up. Made me think about it.
All right, I'll pass the mic back.
Okay, on the lines of Lewis and Clark, if you want to pretend you're Lewis or Clark,
Mm-hmm.
I have a rafting trip to recommend to you. 5 days on the Salmon River.
I might want to be Sacagawea after I think about it more.
Well, I mean, that's an option too. This is the route they took, and it's all protected. It's beautiful. And it's type 2 fun. So the other day we talked about leadership and rhetoric, and I asked our rhetoric students like what leadership traits they saw in you. And some of the things that they mentioned, and maybe one or two that I've added: diligence, timeliness, dependability, being prepared for class. I added being prepared in that you've done what I asked you to before we get to class. You do what I ask you to with entering contribution grades and keeping RenWeb up to date for me. So how have you used those things, even though you might not be a guide? How have you used some of those qualities on outdoor trips?
So usually, I mean, as much as I want to say that I'm like the encourager and I push people, usually most of the time it's me getting pushed to do stuff because it's just like I said, it sucks and I don't want to do it. But I think a lot of it is just like being, like you said, like diligence. It's like being willing to just like keep putting that one step after another, just like staying diligent to that task that you're trying to like pursue, like getting to the blind or like hiking that hill, you know?
Do you use those skills to lead yourself?
Yes. I would say, can you list off the skills again?
Diligence, timeliness, dependability, preparation.
Okay, so I would say that, okay, so after that bear hunt, I began to like start trying to like work out in a way, like doing more like conditioning and stuff, like to get myself in like better shape to do those hikes and stuff like that. So like lately I haven't been super diligent to my working out plan because of golf season, but
It's Mr. Snell's fault.
yeah, it is. He told me not to. But I just think that in this next hunt, which I don't know when that'll be because I haven't had good luck lately on drawing tags, but in this next hunt, like I'll have a lot, like I've learned a lot from past hunts that'll like help me to be more diligent in my approach to getting ready for this hunt and like leaving me to be better prepared. And then also to like if I like say if I were to take someone that hadn't been hunting, I know like tricks that my uncle has used on me or like people have used on me to help like lead them in that.
Yeah, and I've seen the diligence aspect and the preparation aspect because I've watched you study propositions when you could have been doing other things, and you're sitting there doing what needed to be done. So, good job on that, Mr. Snell. So you talk about having the same goal in mind in order to accomplish things. Why do you think having a common goal is necessary?
So let's say you're trying to get to the top of this mountain or you're trying to get to this blind. If one person wants to sit at the truck and one person wants to get to the blind, it's going to be hard for either of you to get what you want because like what needs to be done is get to the blind, but the other person doesn't want to. So if they don't want to, and like let's say okay, let's take the example I use of getting the bait out of that bait pile. Had I wanted to sit up at the top of the truck and my uncle wanted to go clean this bait pile out, then he would have been carrying a probably 100-pound barrel of dog food and old meat up the hill by himself. But we had to like unite on the idea that, yeah, this is going to suck, but it's something that we have to do. Or like, I mean, a lot of it boils down to the fact that we could get in trouble for it, but just like knowing that it's something that has to be done.
What is our common goal as a body of believers?
To spread the word and to point others to Christ.
What would you say is the common goal of the senior class at MCA?
Well, I think a lot of us are trying to make it to graduation, and then just
Hopefully
also
all of you.
Yeah. But just trying to like set a good example, because like in my opinion, our class is like one of the like out of the grades I've seen in the past, ours is like one of the most unified that I've seen. So I think like if we can, I mean, we only have to make it through another week of school, but I think if we can just like stay united, we can like leave a better example, like leave the place better than we found it in a way.
What do you think has created that unity?
I would say, so one thing that I keep thinking about is the fact that we've had the same group chat since 8th grade. So just being in that group chat, and then like freshman year we would hang out at my house every Friday night, and like sometimes even Saturday nights. So just like we've all kind of grown up together, and it's just like we're all friends. There's hardly any drama in the grade, so it just helps us all to like just form, like to move around as one whole body instead of like 6 or 7 different groups that are trying to leave a legacy.
Do you think we have to consciously think about what our goal is when we're involved in some pursuit? Like, do you consciously think about having a common goal with your friends, or does it just happen?
I think it just happens. Like, in these years I've been at MCA, I haven't been like, oh, I need to go do this so I can lead people well. It's just been like kind of just living life and just walking around and like talking to people and stuff like that. But none of it has ever been like out of this idea of if I don't go talk to them, then I'm not going to leave a good legacy and stuff like that.
How does that filter down when you're working with younger students? So, how do you? Because I think within RT groups or the classroom, it's a little different situation because you're not necessarily choosing to be with those people, those particular people. So how do you go about, as a leader, establishing a common goal with the people you're leading?
Well, I would say, like with Carter and Cade, who are like the 2 kids that I've focused on most this year, it's just been like trying to be intentional with them, and then like a lot of these younger kids are a lot more shy, except for like Jeremy Short. That's like the most unshy kid I've ever seen. But like a lot of them are shy, so you kind of have to force them to talk, and then like in that you can both grow together, and like you're helping them because now you're getting them more comfortable talking to older people, but you're also helping yourself as now you're being a better leader.
If you were going to pass down one crucial piece of advice to the juniors as they step up for senior year next year, what would it be? Probably
just to be yourself, like be authentic. Not like, don't try to be somebody that you're not with like these younger kids, because like if you just walk around as like this big bad senior, then it's going to be like intimidating for them. So just like Case, for example, he's like one of my closer friends now, and even though we're like 3 years apart in age, it's just like there's never been like that thing of like me trying to like be some big bad senior to impress him. It's just always been like I just view him as another senior, honestly. So it's just like, don't really look at your age, just look at like the people. Okay, that's good advice. All right, thank you. I'm going to pass it along.
Okay. I'm going to bring it back to your example. You talk about nature as the great leveler, and then you move into talking about the American Revolution as your example of people really striving for something. So what was the goal of these men fighting during the American Revolution? What was their ideal that they were fighting for?
to get their freedom from Britain.
Okay,
Britain.
freedom. Okay. So I'm trying to decide if I want to go back to nature or stay on the deep level that Stacy or Mrs. Jackson would do. But we'll start with nature. What are ideals that you fight for when you're in nature?
Well, most of the time that I'm in nature, it's like on a hunt. So obviously your goal is to like get the animal that you're after. But I would say also just like the idea that I pursue more out of that, because in hunting, the pulling the trigger is like maybe 1% of the entire thing. So I've like through getting through a couple of hunts now, it's like now instead of having that like, oh, I want to get this animal, it's more like, oh, I'm more focused on the experiences I share with people around me.
Okay, so the experience. That's great. So what about just in your relationships to people? What ideals do you fight for? Like freedom was one for the American Revolution. Experience is one for hunting. So then in relationship to people, what are your relational goals and higher ideals that you fight for?
I would say trying to make them like know their value, I guess. So like I came to MCA in 8th grade, and I can't really use 8th grade as an example because I didn't talk to anyone. But 9th grade, the thing about my grade is that we're like super, like I think we're pretty accepting of other people. So I think like they did a very good job at making me feel included as like a part of the grade like so quickly, because like for a lot of people transitioning schools is a hard thing to do. So I think they did a good job at like bringing me in and showing me the love. So that's like what I've tried to do in like all my relationships now, is just like kind of remove that awkwardness and just try to be real, like I had said.
Okay, be real. Okay. Yeah. So how do you do that tangibly in everyday life with maybe an 8th grader that you haven't talked to or that you don't know much about?
I mean, obviously the starter, just walk up, say, hey, how are you doing? And then it's like, you can go from there. Like, I mean, some of them, like, they just won't talk to you at all. And then, but it's just like trying to look at something they're doing, and then, like, for example, you see, let's take Jeremy Short for an example. That boy always has Legos, so just like talking to him about his Legos, and then, or like his Crocs that he wears because he's got good Croc taste. So it's just like trying to, like find something that they love and talk about that and like love it yourself in a way.
That's great. If you could give advice to your quiet 8th grade self, what would you tell him now?
I would say talk to people other than Luke and Lane. And I don't know, I would just say I would just say talk to people, honestly. I was like super nervous to get out of my comfort zone and like talk to people at MCA. And like in 9th grade, so in 8th grade I was in like this one section, and the next year I was with completely different people. And I just started to like hang out a lot more with people and just talk to people and grow closer to them.
That's great. All right.
Okay, so what would you say to somebody who says, I don't like the outdoors, give me my pizza and my couch and my TV remote, and I'm never getting out of my house?
That you're hurting yourself more than you think you're helping yourself, because like I didn't start hunting until I believe it was 2018 was the year I went on my first hunt. And like just in that week I had learned a lot more about myself than I even knew I could do. Like one of the days we were trying to do a deer drive, so we walked off from the back of camp and we walked up another hill, and then we walked down another hill, and we walked back up a hill and then down again. So it was just like we had to go up 3 times, and going up is not fun. So it's just like knowing like I could like go back to that spot and look at it and be like I accomplished this thing, or just like looking. So on the drive up to my dad's house, we passed by the mountain that we went bear hunting all the time, or bear hunting that one time. So I can look up at the peak of that mountain and be like, yeah, I've been up there. And it's just like somebody that sits in their couch, they can be like, yeah, I've been right there on that couch. So it's just like you get to witness a lot more. Like I think being in the outdoors has helped me grow my relationship with God a lot more than like being. I mean, it's grown like outside of the outdoors, but I think it's just like being in the outdoors unlocks that next step.
Okay, but what if I like my pizza and my couch? Like that gives me instant gratification. What you're talking about is a lot of up down, which I really don't know what up down is. Just looking outside right now, but that seems like it takes a lot longer to experience that joy that you're talking about. So why should I put in that effort to go do that? Like explain that to somebody who is not convinced.
I'd say part of our like calling as humans is to work, like put our bodies to work. And by sitting on that couch, the only work you're doing is bringing the pizza up to your mouth. So I would say there's like in that work, it helps you grow closer to God. And like I would just say like that person that's sitting on that couch isn't really fulfilling their calling. And I mean, like that can be a fun life for you, and if that still doesn't help you, then have fun with your pizza and your TV shows. But I don't know what else to tell you because it's just like I'm giving you the things you need to know. And then
Okay. So between like the pizza and couch example and someone that's going to go climb Everest, is there like some kind of middle ground that I can be? Is there somewhere in the middle that maybe I can still appreciate those relationships and grow those stronger without having to go necessarily climb an Everest?
yes, I think golf. So you're outside, and some people. Well, I mean, you're obviously working because you're swinging a golf club. Some people are working a lot more than other people. So it's just like I get to have like this removed perspective at work, like being able to just like look at these old guys talking and like hear like not eavesdrop. Well, I mean, I guess eavesdrop, but like listen to like what they're talking about and just like seeing like the same group of old men play with each other every day, and it's just like seeing their like friendship. But I mean, yeah. So
Okay. Would Aristotle call that middle ground anything in particular, or
the golden mean.
okay?
Golden meme.
There you go. So, as you go off to college next year to Lubbock, how do you plan to create new relationships with people? Obviously, Lubbock looks the same as Midland, pretty much. So, you're going to be away from the classmates that you've been at this school with for a long time. Do you have any strategies that you're beginning to think about engaging with people, not necessarily in the city?
Well, I think of it like how I've made relationships with the 7th graders. Like, obviously, they're not going to be little 13-year-old kids that I'm becoming friends with, but it's like, also like with work, like I'm surrounded by a lot of new people, and I mean, I guess it's more like you can pick and choose at like outside of work, but like at work you have to be friends with all the people you're with. But like with these 7th graders, I didn't really have like at the beginning of the year I didn't really care to make these relationships, but like just like being next to guys in my grade and these 7th graders coming up, I've like seen like I've seen myself like want to be friends with them and be like an influence on their lives as well, just because of like past upperclassmen that have like made an impact on my life.
That's good. And as you prepare to go off to college next year, I would challenge you with that. Like Mrs. Jackson said about those qualities, you are a leader, and you have that perspective that says, in order to create these strong friendships, I need to bring people into experiences that are not just necessarily class and eating in our daily routine, but I would challenge you to build relationships in ways that are unique and creative as you go up to Tech next fall. Yeah. It's your turn now. You get to ask us questions.
Who should I pick first? Okay, Mr. Snell.
Okay.
So this year I had you for geometry, and in geometry we get this chance to have walk-up songs. So out of all the walk-up songs this year, which one was your favorite?
That's a hard question. We had some ABBA, we had some Space Jam. I think I'm going to have to go with some Natasha Bedingfield. Can you
Told
can
you.
Can you sing a little bit of what that sounds like for us?
I would, but I left my singing shoes at home. Sadly.
Yeah, sadly.
One thing I forgot today.
Yeah. All right, I'll pass it on.
Okay, Mr. Rogers, your office is in a, let's say, weird space. So I guess, like, a lot of people don't know this, but the walls don't actually go to the roof. So, what is, like, the weirdest conversation that you've overheard from your office?
Man, I don't know. This is not a conversation. I'm sure there have been plenty of weird ones, but usually they're probably coming from my office because, I don't know, some weird ones. But one day I was working in my office for a couple of hours, and I heard this just beautiful melody playing over the walls. I don't know if you remember this, but and I was like, that is just so nice. I feel like I'm in Hobby Lobby right now. But I didn't realize it was just kind of like on repeat. And I think Mrs. Keenest or somebody was over in their office. And finally we realized, like 2 hours later, that somebody's alarm or something was going off in y'all's office, and the door was locked. And so it was very therapeutic, but it was just funny. But yeah, I can't think of a conversation on the spot. I'll get back to you if I think that's one, though.
I think that was Mr. Fithian's classical music from Mr. Peter.
Basically.
Okay, Miss Jackson, this year I helped you in rhetoric. So we did a couple of impromptu speeches. So if you were to give an impromptu speech right now, what would you give it on? It doesn't have to be serious. It could be funny or just anything.
Outdoor mishaps.
Very good answer.
There have been many. Well, Jasper, I do appreciate your leadership this year in the classroom and the effort you've put into RT groups and the effort you put into your oral. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in your next hunt and where you go next year, how things go at Tech. I'm going to ask Mrs. Rogers to close for us.
All right, please bow your heads with me. Father, you are good to us. You've been faithful to us this week in just being amongst us and speaking through these seniors in all of their orals. Thank you for Jasper specifically and his heart for nature and for you and pursuing you in your creation. I pray that you will continue to meet him in nature and elsewhere as he continues down this next path. We thank you for just all of his commitment to MCA and to his friends and family, and I just pray that you will be with him as he continues into college. We love you, and we're grateful for you. Amen.